The year is 1885. Not that matters. For in Kafirstan, time is without beginning or end. It is timeless as Rudyard Kipling's story, The Man Who Would Be King. We are doing all in our power to tell this wild, funny, and bizarre tale. The Man Who Would Be King.
The Man Who Would Be King is a book that is really sort of like the devil's version of the king who would be man. That is Jesus, the king who became incarnated, who became a man. Well, The Man Who Would Be King is a book about a couple of Freemasons who decide to take over some territory, and as it turns out, they end up being mistaken for gods.
Meet Daniel Dravit and Peachy Carnahan, two rogues of India.
Halt! Hats off! You men are not under arrest. The less said about our professions, the better, for we have been most things in our time. We've been all over India. We know her cities, her jungles, her jails, and her palaces. And we have decided that she isn't big enough for such as we.
We're not little men, so we're going away to be kings. Kings of Kafiristan.
Oh, Kafiristan. We hear they have 32 idols there, so we'll be the 33rd and 34th.
It's a place of warring tribes, which is to say, a land of opportunity for such as we, who know how to train men and lead them into battle.
We'll go there. We'll say to any chief we can find, do you want to vanquish your foes? Of course he'll say, go to it. We'll fight for him, make him king, then we'll subvert that king. We'll seize his royal throne and loot the country 4 ways from Sunday.
No white man has ever been there and come out since Alexander.
Alexander who?
Alexander the Great, king of Greece, about 300 years before Christ.
Well, if a Greek can do it, we can do it.
Sikandar, a god, come here long ago from the west.
Yeah, that'll be the Greek bloke Brother Kipling told us about.
Alexander. Alexander Sikandar.
Here. Alexander.
He builded great city, Sikandar Gul, high in mountains, sit on throne. All peoples worship him. Then one day time comes, he say he must go to east. People pull their hairs out, tear clothes. So Sikandar promised to send back son.
328 BC. The Cyclopedia said.
Soldiers saw arrow go into Danny's chest, him pluck it out, and not bleeding.
So?
So, son of Sikandar.
They think I'm a god?
God, put your foot out that I may kiss your big toe.
You may kiss my royal arse.
Not royal, holy. You're a deity, remember? Fiji? Yes, Billy.
Is Danny not son of Sikandar?
No, Billy, he's a man like you and me. He can break wind at both ends simultaneous, which I'm willing to bet is more than any god can do.
But the arrow?
The arrow's stuck in the bandolier. There was no miracle, Billy. So you'd better tell them that out there. And my dad's name was Herbert Dravit, Esquire. And he was bar steward in a knocking shop in Durham.
Hang on a minute, Danny. Maybe we're missing a bet here.
What do you mean?
Supposing you was an ignorant Kafiri, who would you rather follow, a god or a man? Now, we're here to conquer this country, aren't we?
Yeah?
Well, with you as a god, it would take half the time and half the trouble.
The idea is a bit blasphemous-like.
No, Danny. Blaspheming is when you take his name in vain. God Almighty's.
And what if they found out we was having them on?
Why should they? We won't tell them. And you won't tell them, will you, Billy?
Oh, no. Indeed, by Jove, no.
So, as they take over land, and are deified, they're eventually found out. And in fact, the main ruler, the main character of the two, who is considered a god, is betrayed by a kiss, just like Jesus. So what happens is that at some point in his rulership, in his theocracy, he decides he wants a wife. And interestingly, even within the book itself, reference is made to Genesis 6, at least roughly. It's generically referred to as being somewhere in the Bible, but Genesis 6 about the sons of God mating with the daughters of men. And so the book makes that reference.
Billy Fish, says I to the chief of Bashkai, what's the difficulty here? A straight answer to a true friend. You know, says Billy Fish. How should a man tell you who knows everything? How can daughters of men marry gods or devils? It's not proper. I remembered something like that in the Bible, but if after seeing us as long as they had, they still believed we were gods, it wasn't for me to undeceive them. A god can do anything, says I. If the king is fond of a girl, he'll not let her die. She'll have to, said Billy Fish. There are all sorts of gods and devils in these mountains, and now and again a girl marries one of them and isn't seen any more. Besides, you two know the mark cut in the stone. Only the gods know that. We thought you were men till you showed the sign of the Master. I wished then that we had explained about the loss of the genuine secrets of a master mason at the first go-off, but I said nothing. All that night there was a blowing of horns in a little dark temple halfway down the hill, and I heard the girl crying fit to die. One of the priests told us that she was being prepared to marry the king. I'll have no nonsense of that kind, says Dan. I don't want to interfere with your customs, but I'll take my own wife. The girl's a little bit afraid, says the priest. She thinks she's going to die.
Due to local folklore, the woman who was to be his wife is afraid because, as it turns out, there were some kind of demonic beings in the area, and if women were ever given to them, then they ended up dying. So she's afraid. So anyhow, when she goes to kiss him, she actually bites his cheek. So when the populace sees that he's bleeding, they realize he's not a god and basically do away with him. So what we have really is a story that's a mockery of Christianity, a mockery of the Jesus story. It's about a mere man, a mere charlatan really, who pretends to be a god and is found out due to the fact that he bled. So the author seems to be implying that because Jesus bled, it proves that he was a mere mortal. Whereas the fact is, because Jesus bled, it shows that he became man. And the blood he shed was for our sins. Also, interestingly, many movies have followed being made upon this basic premise. For example, Stargate, a movie about a extraterrestrial alien who pretends to be a deity, and so he's ruling over Egypt and worshipped as God. You have various stories like this. Even in Alien vs. Predator, you had a recounting of that. These extraterrestrial aliens were worshipped as gods by the ancient Central Americans.
Thousands of years ago, these hunters found a backwater planet. They taught humans how to build and were worshipped as gods. Every 100 years, the gods would return. And when they did, they would expect a sacrifice. Humans were used to breed the ultimate prey. hunters would battle with these great serpents to prove themselves worthy to carry the mark. But if the hunters lost, they made sure nothing survived.
And there are many other movies that play upon this basic theme. Of course, they probably did not originate with The Man Who Would Be King, but these are really much older stories of fallen angels or demon or Nephilim who either portray themselves as deities or are mistakenly deities by their followers, etc. Below in the information section, I'll post a link to the book from Amazon, and also where you can actually listen to the audiobook on YouTube. It only takes about probably an hour and a half to listen to, and it's very worth listening to.
Saints their hopes they knew and mocked the cross and flame. He met the tyrant's bandish still the lion's gory mane. He bowed his head his death to feel. Who followed in his train? Detriments? Well, I want to remind you it was detriments like us that built this bloody empire. And he is out of the bloody Raj. And so, about turn.